Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the U-East Defender, watching as the massive Galactic Council space station grew bigger on the main screen. The structure was huge, 10 miles long, and covered in lights that looked like a small city. Floating in space, ships from dozens of different alien races moved around it like busy insects. Jake kept his face calm and worried, just like he had practiced for years. The aliens watching him through their cameras had to see exactly what they expected to see. A human who looked scared and out of place among the powerful galactic civilizations. A member of a weak species that barely understood the technology they used. It was all a lie. Dr. Lisa Martinez stood next to him, holding a datapad with fake information about human evolution. The files showed humans as plant-eating creatures who evolved from small prey animals. According to the made-up records, humans were naturally afraid of conflict and only developed space travel to run away from dangerous predators on Earth. Lisa had helped create these lies 30 years ago. Every detail was carefully planned. The fake fossil records, the false DNA analysis, even the made-up history of human civilization. It all painted humans as weak, peaceful creatures who were too afraid to hurt anyone. The real truth was very different. Humans were the most dangerous predators in known space. Earth was a death world where everything tried to kill everything else. Humans had developed nuclear weapons before they could even fly properly. They had turned war into an art form, created weapons that could destroy entire planets, and built their whole civilization around the idea that conflict was natural. But the galaxy didn't know that. They saw what humans wanted them to see. Captain Ron Davis walked over to Jake with a report in his hand. His face looked upset, but Jake knew it was just another performance. Ron was one of the best actors in the human fleet. He could look terrified while planning the destruction of entire enemy fleets. "Commander, we just got another distress call from the cargo ship New Dawn," Ron said, making his voice sound worried. The Zephyrian Empire attacked them near the Kepler system. They took all the supplies and left the crew floating in space. Jake nodded slowly, like he was thinking hard about what to do. "Send a diplomatic message to the Zephyrian government. Ask them to investigate this attack and return our people safely." Several alien observers on the bridge made sounds that Jake recognized as laughter. To them, humans were pathetic, always asking politely for help instead of fighting back. Always trying to solve problems with words instead of weapons. If only they knew the truth. The New Dawn wasn't really a cargo ship. It was a military vessel disguised as a merchant transport. The crew wasn't helpless civilians floating in space. They were Special Forces soldiers who were right now planning tracking devices on every Zephyrian ship in the area. The supplies the aliens had stolen were actually advanced monitoring equipment that would let humans watch everything the Zephyrian Empire did for the next 10 years. But the aliens saw exactly what they expected to see. Weak humans getting robbed and doing nothing about it. Lisa walked over to the communication station and started typing a message. She made sure her hands were shaking a little, like she was nervous about talking to the powerful alien races. The message was another carefully crafted lie, full of polite requests and humble apologies for bothering the great Zephyrian Empire. The reply came back quickly. The Zephyrian commander who had attacked the New Dawn was being promoted for his successful raid against the cowardly humans. The stolen supplies would be sold to fund more attacks on human ships. The crew would be returned when humans paid a large ransom. Jake read the message out loud, so all the alien observers could hear it. He made his voice sound sad and defeated. "Send them the ransom money," he said quietly. "We can't let our people suffer because of politics." More alien laughter filled the bridge. Some of the observers were making jokes about how pathetic humans were. Others were already planning their own attacks on human ships. After all, if humans would pay money instead of fighting, why not take advantage of that weakness? The truth was that every attack on humans was being carefully recorded. Every act of aggression was being documented. Every theft, every insult, every moment of alien cruelty was being saved in vast databases hidden on Earth. Humans were building a case, collecting evidence, preparing for the day when they would stop pretending to be civilized. Dr. Martinez finished sending the ransom payment and turned back to Jake. "Commander, I'm getting reports from our colonies about more raids. The Coven Syndicate hit 3 farming worlds last week. They took all the food and left the colonists with barely enough to survive until the next supply ship arrives." Jake closed his eyes like the news was too painful to hear. "How many people are suffering?" "About 50,000 colonists are on emergency rations, mostly families with young children." The alien observers seemed to enjoy this news. To them, human suffering was entertaining. Some were even recording the conversation to show their friends back home how weak and helpless humans were. What they didn't know was that the farming worlds were actually military training facilities, disguised as agricultural colonies. The colonists were soldiers and their families who were practicing survival techniques in hostile environments. The emergency rations were actually high-energy, military food that could keep a person fighting for weeks. But the aliens saw starving human families begging for help. Captain Davis brought another report to Jake. This one was about Coven pirates attacking human research stations. According to the official records, the pirates had destroyed months of important scientific work and stolen valuable equipment. The real truth was that the research stations were weapons development facilities. The scientific work was actually plans for new types of bombs and energy weapons. The valuable equipment was prototype technology that humans had deliberately let the pirates steal because it would explode if anyone tried to use it. But the aliens thought they had struck another blow against the helpless humans. Jake spent the next hour receiving more reports of attacks on human ships and colonies. Each report made him look more worried and defeated. The alien observers were clearly enjoying the show. Some were even placing bets on how long it would take before humans gave up and surrendered their entire civilization. If they only knew what humans were really planning. Hidden throughout human space were weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Every peaceful human colony had underground bunkers filled with enough military equipment to conquer small empires. Every helpless human ship carried weapons that could vaporize fleets of alien vessels in seconds. Earth itself was the most heavily armed planet in the galaxy. The moon wasn't really a natural satellite. It was a massive weapons platform disguised to look like a dead rock. The other planets in the solar system had been turned into manufacturing centers for weapons so advanced that most alien races couldn't even imagine them. But to the galaxy, humans looked like frightened children playing with toys they didn't understand. The deception had worked perfectly for 30 years. Every aggressive alien race saw humans as easy prey. They thought Earth's children were too weak and stupid to be a real threat. They were planning bigger and bigger attacks, getting ready for what they believed would be an easy conquest of human space. They had no idea they were making the biggest mistake in galactic history. Jake looked at the Galactic Council station, growing larger on the screen. Soon he would sit in those council chambers and listen to alien leaders make jokes about human weakness. He would nod politely while they planned new ways to hurt his people. He would smile sadly while they divided up human worlds among themselves like pieces of cake. And all the time, he would be counting down the days until humanity stopped pretending to be something it wasn't. The aliens thought they were hunting sheep. They were about to discover they had been poking sleeping dragons. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her command chair deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The massive underground facility stretched for miles in every direction, hidden from the galaxy's eyes. Thousands of screens showed the real situation across human space. Not the fake reports that aliens were allowed to see, but the truth. The truth was getting worse every day. Kate looked at the latest casualty report on her main screen. The civilian transport New Hope had been completely destroyed by the Zephyrian Empire. 15,000 colonists were dead, including 3,000 children. The Zephyrians had broadcast the attack live on their entertainment networks. Their people had watched human families die while eating dinner and laughing. The New Hope had really been a civilian ship. Not every human vessel was a disguised military craft. Some were exactly what they appeared to be. Ordinary people trying to build new lives on distant worlds. Mothers and fathers and children who trusted that their government would protect them. Kate had failed to protect them. The weight of those deaths sat heavy on her shoulders. Dr. Paul Bennett walked into the command center carrying a thick folder of reports. Paul ran Earth's Psychological Warfare Division, though the aliens didn't know such a thing existed. According to public records, he was just a university professor who studied alien cultures. "Admiral, you need to see this," Paul said, setting the folder on Kate's desk. "The attacks aren't random anymore. They're organized, coordinated. The alien races are working together now." Kate opened the folder and started reading. The reports painted a terrible picture. The Zephyrian Empire wasn't just attacking human ships for profit anymore. They were testing human defenses, looking for weaknesses. The Corvan Syndicate wasn't just raiding colonies for supplies. They were mapping human space, counting ships and weapons. Most disturbing of all, 12 different alien races were sharing information about humans. Species that had been enemies for centuries were suddenly working together. Their target was obvious: complete human extinction. "They're calling it the Great Harvest," Paul explained. "They plan to attack 50 human worlds at the same time. Kill everyone, take everything useful, and divide human space among themselves." Kate felt her stomach turn cold. 50 worlds meant millions of innocent people. Real civilians, not disguised soldiers. Families who had never hurt anyone and didn't even know about Earth's secret military power. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster entered the command center with more bad news. Amy was Kate's best intelligence officer, though her official job was running a small museum on Earth. She had spent the last 5 years living among alien civilizations, pretending to be a harmless human academic while gathering military secrets. "Admiral, the coalition is bigger than we thought," Amy reported. "It's not just 12 species anymore. We're tracking at least 20 different governments involved in the planning. Some of the biggest military powers in the galaxy." Amy activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of alien fleets throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked enemy ships. There were thousands of them, all moving toward human space. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore," Amy continued. "Zephyrian children are being taught songs about killing humans in school. Corvan politicians are campaigning on promises to enslave human colonies. Some species are already arguing about which human worlds they get to keep after the war." Kate studied the display for a long time. The alien fleets were massive. Each one could destroy entire star systems. Together, they represented the largest military force in galactic history. If they attacked all at once, even Earth's secret weapons might not be enough to stop them. But there was something else bothering Kate, something that made her angry in a way she hadn't felt for 30 years. "They're enjoying this," she said. Quietly, "they're not just planning to kill us. They're having fun doing it." Paul nodded grimly. "The psychological profiles are clear. Most of these species see humans as entertainment. They genuinely believe we're too stupid and weak to fight back. To them, this isn't a war, it's a game." Kate remembered the early days of the deception. When human leaders had decided to pretend to be weak, it was supposed to buy time. Time to build better weapons, establish stronger colonies, prepare for the day when humanity would have to defend itself. The plan was to avoid war by appearing too pathetic to bother attacking. Instead, appearing weak had made humans into targets. The galaxy's bullies had decided that picking on humans was fun, easy, safe. They were about to learn How wrong they were. Amy brought up another display showing recent alien broadcasts. The images were horrifying. Zephyrian News shows featured comedians making jokes about dead human children. Coven entertainment programs showed actors pretending to be scared humans, begging for mercy. Some alien species had turned human suffering into an art form. "There's more," Amy said, her voice tight with controlled anger. 3 alien governments have announced public holidays to celebrate the coming destruction of humanity. They're planning festivals, parades. They want their children to remember the day they wiped out the human race. Kate felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. For 30 years, she had been part of the deception. She had helped create the fake reports that made humans look weak. She had sent good soldiers to die in staged battles that were designed to make enemies overconfident. All of it had been to avoid this moment, to prevent the day when humanity would have to show the galaxy what Earth's children were really capable of. But that day had come anyway. Kate activated the communication system that connected her to President Helen Wright in Washington. The president appeared on screen immediately. Behind her stood the leaders of every major nation on Earth. The Global Defense Council was already in emergency session. "Admiral Sullivan," President Wright said formally, "what's your assessment of the situation?" "Madam President, the deception has failed. The enemy coalition numbers at least 20 species with combined fleets exceeding 10,000 vessels. They plan to attack simultaneously across 50 human worlds in what they're calling the Great Harvest. Estimated casualties if they succeed: every human being in colonized space." The president's face remained calm, but Kate could see the anger burning in her eyes. "Recommendations?" "Operation Revelation, Madam President. Full disclosure of our true military capabilities. Immediate cessation of all peaceful pretenses. Give the galaxy one final warning, then show them what happens when you try to extinct humanity." The vote was held immediately. Every member of the Global Defense Council voted the same way. 30 years of pretending to be something they weren't was over. Kate turned to her staff officers. "Begin Operation Revelation. I want every hidden base revealed, every disguised weapon activated, every secret fleet brought to full readiness. Send the message to all human ships and colonies. The mask comes off in 72 hours. Across human space, the real war machine began to wake up. Mountain ranges split open to reveal massive gun platforms that had been hidden for decades. Ocean floors rose as underwater cities surfaced for the first time. Asteroid mining operations dropped their disguises and showed themselves to be weapons factories. The space elevator on Luna wasn't really for moving cargo. It was the barrel of the largest gun ever built, capable of firing projectiles at near light speed across the galaxy. The research stations orbiting Jupiter weren't studying the planet's atmosphere. They were manufacturing antimatter weapons that could crack moons in half. Every human ship in space received the same coded message: pretend time is over. Show them what we really are. Dr. Bennett was already working on humanity's final message to the galaxy, the speech that would warn every alien civilization exactly once before the real war began. "What should we tell them?" he asked Kate. Kate looked at the casualty reports from the New Hope. 15,000 innocent people dead for the entertainment of alien audiences. Children killed because their murderers thought it was funny. "Tell them the truth," Kate said. "Tell them we tried to be good. We tried to be peaceful. We tried to be the kind of species the galaxy could respect instead of fear." She paused, thinking about all the human lives that had been lost while maintaining the deception. All the soldiers who had died in fake battles. All the civilians who had suffered while humanity pretended to be weak. Tell them they wouldn't let us be the good guys. So now they get to meet the real us. The message was prepared. The fleets moved into position. Humanity was about to drop the mask it had worn for 30 years. The galaxy was about to discover what they had really been fighting. The transmission began at exactly noon, Earth time. Every screen in known space suddenly went black. Then simple white text appeared, scrolling slowly across billions of displays on thousands of worlds. From the human species to all galactic civilizations, final notice. President Helen Wright stood in the Oval Office, wearing a simple black suit. Behind her stood the leaders of every major nation on Earth. General Robert Kim from Korea, Prime Minister Jack Thompson from Australia, Chancellor Maria Santos from Brazil. For the first time in 30 years, they weren't smiling nervously or looking apologetic. They looked angry. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Her uniform was different from what aliens had seen before. Instead of the plain blue dress uniform that suggested a peaceful space navy, she wore military combat gear covered in medals from wars the galaxy didn't know had happened. Her face was hard as stone. For 37 years, we have endured your attacks on our civilians, President Wright began, her voice calm and cold. Your raids on our colonies. Your treatment of our species as prey animals to be hunted for sport. We have responded with diplomacy, with peace talks, with endless patience. You have mistaken this for weakness. Every alien leader watching the broadcast felt a chill run through their bodies. This wasn't the same human they had seen before. President Wright's voice carried no fear, no desperation. She spoke like someone who held all the power and was tired of pretending otherwise. The scene shifted to footage that no alien had ever seen before. Mountains on human worlds were splitting open like giant flowers. Massive gun platforms rose from hidden valleys, their weapons bigger than most alien starships. What had looked like natural rock formations were revealed to be camouflaged military bases. Ocean floors were rising on a dozen human worlds. Underwater cities the size of continents surfaced for the first time. Water pouring off weapons platforms that dwarfed anything in known space. Aliens had thought humans only lived on land. They were wrong. Humans had been building military bases under every ocean for decades. We are not the herbivorous prey species your scientists believe us to be, President Wright continued. We are apex predators from a death world that has been testing our survival instincts for millions of years. The broadcast showed Earth's real history. Not the fake evolutionary records that aliens had studied, but the truth. Humans fighting massive predators with nothing but stone tools. Humans surviving ice ages that would have killed most galactic species. Humans turning every natural disaster into a chance to become stronger. We developed nuclear weapons before we achieved flight. We weaponized disease, poison, radiation, and elements your species have never encountered. We turned our art, our music, our literature into psychological warfare, because even our entertainment is based on conflict. Alien scientists watching the broadcast were frantically checking their data. Everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. The DNA samples had been faked. The fossil records had been planted. The psychological profiles had been carefully crafted lies. Humans weren't plant-eating prey animals. They were the most successful predators their world had ever produced. A species that had survived everything their death world could throw at them and come out stronger. Fleet. Admiral Chris Parker appeared on screen next. Behind him, space itself seemed to be changing. Stars were disappearing, then reappearing as massive structures moved between them and the cameras. What aliens had thought was empty space was actually filled with cloaked human fleets. Ships, the size of small moons uncloaked throughout human space. Vessels that made the largest alien dreadnoughts look like toys powered up weapons systems that made nearby stars flicker. The peaceful exploration ships that aliens had been laughing at for decades shed their disguises, revealing themselves as warships designed to crack planets. These are our real ships, Admiral Parker said simply. We have been flying cargo. containers with engines attached while our actual military stayed hidden. Every human vessel you have ever seen was designed to look weak and helpless. You fell for it completely. The broadcast showed the truth about human colonies as well. Farming worlds revealed underground bunkers filled with enough weapons to sterilize continents. Research stations dropped their peaceful disguises and showed themselves to be weapons development facilities. Even human hospitals were revealed to have hidden military functions, producing biological weapons that could target specific alien DNA. Dr. Lisa Martinez appeared on screen, still wearing her simple scientist outfit. But now she stood in front of a laboratory that stretched beyond the horizon, filled with weapons that seemed to bend reality around themselves. Every piece of technology we have ever shared with the galaxy has been deliberately weakened, she explained. Our real computers are thousands of times more powerful than anything you have seen. Our real weapons work on principles your scientists cannot even understand. We have been giving you toys while keeping the real tools for ourselves. The most shocking revelation came when the cameras showed Earth's moon. What every alien had believed was a natural satellite suddenly opened like a giant mechanical eye. The moon wasn't a rock. It was a weapons platform the size of a small planet, armed with guns that could destroy entire solar systems. "This is your final warning," President Wright said, her image returning to the screen. "Cease all aggressive actions against human interests. Withdraw from human space. End your military alliance against our species. You have 72 standard hours to comply." The camera pulled back to show the Oval Office from above. Through the windows, alien viewers could see Washington, D.C., but it wasn't the simple city they had seen in previous broadcasts. The buildings were retracting into the ground, revealing a massive military complex that stretched to the horizon. The White House itself was just the tip of a command bunker that went down for miles. "We have been pretending to be civilized," President Wright said, her voice carrying a promise that made every alien leader's blood run cold. "Do not make us stop." The transmission ended, but its effects were immediate. Across the galaxy, panic spread faster than the speed of light. Alien governments that had been planning humanity's extinction were suddenly faced with the truth. They had been poking the most dangerous predators in known space. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Supreme Commander Zax 471 stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. The human ships his forces had been preparing to attack weren't cargo vessels and exploration craft. They were dreadnoughts that could vaporize his entire fleet without slowing down. The Corvin Syndicate's war council was in chaos. Their intelligence reports showed that every human colony they had been planning to raid was actually a fortress world capable of defending itself against armies 10 times larger than what the Syndicate could field. But the most terrifying revelation was about Earth itself. The planet aliens had dismissed as a simple farming world was revealed to be the most heavily fortified location in the galaxy. Every continent was covered in weapons. The planet's rings weren't natural debris. They were orbital defense platforms. Even Earth's sun had been partially enclosed in what appeared to be an energy collection system, but was actually a weapon capable of turning the star into a directed energy blast. Some alien species immediately began withdrawing their fleets from human space. The smarter leaders realized they had been manipulated by masters of deception and wanted no part of the coming war. But others, too proud or too committed to their military alliances, refused to believe what they had seen. The 12-species coalition that had started planning the Great Harvest was too invested in their plans to back down now. They convinced themselves that the human broadcast was an elaborate bluff. Supreme Commander Zax 471 addressed his war council with false confidence. "Herbivores do not become predators overnight," he declared. "This is clearly a desperate attempt to scare us away from our rightful conquest. We will proceed with the attack as planned." The coalition accelerated their Timeline. Instead of waiting weeks to launch their coordinated assault, they decided to strike immediately. 3 human colonies would be attacked right away to prove that humanity was still weak and helpless. They chose their targets carefully. New Terra, a farming world with no apparent defenses. Hope Station, a small research outpost with only a few hundred inhabitants. And Paradise, a vacation world where wealthy humans went to relax. The Coalition sent 200 of their best warships to destroy these defenseless human settlements. It would be a quick demonstration of alien power, proof that humans were still the same weak species they had always been. The alien fleets approached their targets with confidence. Their commanders were already planning victory celebrations. They expected to crush the human defenders in minutes and broadcast the footage across the galaxy. They had no idea. They were about to discover exactly why humans had stopped pretending to be civilized. Supreme Commander Zax 471 watched his tactical display with satisfaction. 3 human colonies lay helpless before his massive fleet. New Terra, Hope Station, and Paradise would be destroyed within the hour. Then the galaxy would see that humanity's warning had been nothing but empty words. All ships, begin attack, he commanded from the bridge of his flagship. 200 of the Coalition's finest warships moved forward, weapons charging. Make sure the destruction is complete. I want every human settlement reduced to ash. The first target was New Terra, a farming world that looked completely defenseless. No orbital platforms were visible. No military ships patrolled the area. Just a simple agricultural colony with maybe 50,000 farmers and their families. Zephyrian attack fleet of 60 ships approached the planet confidently. Their commander, Captain Vex 299, was already planning his victory speech. Destroying helpless humans would make him famous throughout the Empire. Target the main settlement, Captain Vex ordered. I want this finished in one strike. The Zephyrian ships fired their main weapons. Enough energy to destroy a small city lanced down toward the human colony. Captain Vex smiled, imagining the fear and panic as the humans realized they were about to die. The energy beams struck something invisible just above the planet's atmosphere. A massive shield flickered into view for just a moment, deflecting the attack harmlessly into space. Then the shield vanished again, leaving no trace it had ever existed. Captain Vex stared at his instruments in confusion. What happened? Why didn't our weapons reach the surface? His answer came 30 seconds later. The farming world of New Terra suddenly bristled with weapons. Gun platforms rose from every field and forest. Missile launchers emerged from underneath barns and farmhouses. The grain silos opened to reveal massive energy cannons that had been disguised as simple storage buildings. But the real surprise came from orbit. What had appeared to be empty space around the planet suddenly filled with human warships. Dozens of vessels uncloaked at once, surrounding the Zephyrian fleet. Each human ship was twice the size of the largest Zephyrian dreadnought. Captain Steve Morrison commanded the lead human vessel, the UES Retribution. He opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. Zephyrian vessels, you have attacked a human colony without provocation. This is your only chance to surrender. Captain Vex laughed. 60 ships against 12? You humans are even more stupid than we thought. All vessels, destroy these pathetic defenders. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of weapons discharged at once, sending enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Toward the human ships, the human vessels didn't even bother to raise shields. The enemy weapons simply passed through them harmlessly, as if the ships weren't really there. Phase shift technology, Captain Morrison explained calmly. We exist in normal space, but not quite in the same dimension as your weapons. Very useful for avoiding damage. The human ships suddenly became solid again and returned fire. But they didn't use energy weapons or missiles like the aliens expected. Instead, they fired what looked like small metal projectiles. Each projectile was only the size of a coin, but they moved at 90% of light speed. When they hit the Zephyrian ships, the results were catastrophic. The kinetic energy was so enormous that entire vessels simply ceased to exist. Converted instantly into expanding clouds of superheated gas. The battle lasted 47 seconds. 60 Zephyrian warships were reduced to constituent atoms by weapons that worked on principles the Empire's scientists couldn't even understand. Captain Vex had just enough time to send a terrified message back to his commanders before his ship joined the growing debris field. "They're not herbivores," he screamed into his communicator. "They're monsters." Meanwhile, the attack on Hope Station was proceeding with equal confidence. 70 coalition ships approached what their intelligence said was a small research outpost with minimal defenses. Commander Korth Prime of the Corvin Syndicate was leading this assault personally. "This will be easy," he told his bridge crew. "A few hundred human scientists hiding in their laboratories. We'll be done before they even know we're here." Hope Station appeared to be exactly what the reports claimed. A small space station orbiting a dead asteroid, with maybe a dozen buildings visible on the surface. No weapons, no military ships, no signs of any defenses at all. The Corvin fleet moved into attack formation. Commander Korth prepared to order the destruction of the station and everyone aboard it. He was looking forward to watching human scientists beg for mercy. That's when the asteroid opened up. What the Coalition had thought was a small research outpost was actually the tip of a massive military complex that extended deep into the asteroid's core. The rock itself was hollow, filled with weapons systems and manufacturing facilities. Hundreds of gun ports opened across the asteroid's surface like deadly flowers blooming in space. But the real shock came when the dead rock started to move. The entire asteroid was actually a ship. A mobile battle station the size of a small moon, armed with weapons that made stars look dim by comparison. Captain Linda Ross commanded Hope Station from its hidden control center. She had been waiting 30 years for this moment. "This is Captain Ross of the U.S. Nemesis," she broadcast to the Corvin fleet. "You have attacked a human military installation. Prepare to discover why that was a mistake." The Nemesis opened fire with weapons that shouldn't have been possible. Gravity cannons that created localized black holes, tearing enemy ships apart at the molecular level. Reality disruptors that made Corvin vessels simply stop existing in this dimension. Temporal weapons that aged enemy ships thousands of years in seconds, turning them into ancient debris. Commander Korth watched in horror as his entire fleet was destroyed by a single human vessel. His ship's weapons couldn't even damage the asteroid ships. Every shot they fired was absorbed harmlessly by defensive systems that seemed to violate the laws of physics. "Retreat," he ordered desperately. "All ships, emergency withdrawal." Only 3 Corvin vessels escaped the massacre. Commander Korth's own ship was heavily damaged, barely able to maintain life support. As they fled, he sent a frantic message to the Coalition command. "Cancel the invasion," he begged. "We've made a terrible mistake. The humans aren't what we thought they were." The third attack on Paradise was led by Admiral Vex 991 of the Brutarian Empire. He commanded 70 of the Coalition's heaviest warships, expecting to crush what intelligence reports described as a pleasure resort for wealthy humans. Paradise looked like exactly that. Beautiful beaches, luxury hotels, recreational facilities. Thousands of humans were visible on the surface, apparently enjoying their vacations. No military presence was detected anywhere. Admiral Vex was practically drooling as he prepared to attack. Wealthy humans would fetch high prices as slaves, and the planet's resources would make him rich beyond imagination. "Begin orbital bombardment," he commanded. "I want the humans terrified but alive. Dead slaves are worthless." The Brutarian fleet fired warning shots near the planet's major cities. Admiral Vex expected to see panic and chaos as the humans realized they were under attack. Instead, something very different happened. The humans on the beaches stood up calmly and walked toward what looked like ordinary vacation cabins. But the cabins weren't really vacation homes. They were disguised military bunkers. And the tourists weren't helpless civilians. They were off-duty soldiers from Earth's most elite military units, taking a well-deserved rest between missions. Within minutes, Paradise transformed from a peaceful resort into a fortress world. The beaches themselves rose into the air, revealing massive gun emplacements underneath. The luxury hotels extended weapons platforms that had been hidden beneath swimming pools and tennis courts. But the most shocking transformation came from the humans themselves. These weren't frightened civilians. They were professional warriors who had been trained since childhood to fight enemies that most alien species couldn't even imagine. General Mary Phillips commanded the Paradise Defense Forces. She had been expecting this attack for weeks and was almost disappointed it had taken so long. "Welcome to Paradise," she broadcast to the Brutarian fleet. "We hope you enjoy your stay. It will be permanent." The human defenders didn't just fight back against the alien invaders. They turned the battle into a demonstration of why humanity had stopped pretending to be civilized. Instead of simply destroying the enemy ships, they disabled them systematically, making sure the crews survived to witness what happened next. The humans boarded the disabled vessels and showed the Brutarian warriors exactly what Earth's children were capable of when they stopped holding back. It wasn't pretty. When the few surviving Brutarians finally escaped, they carried with them memories that would give them nightmares for the rest of their lives. Admiral Vex himself barely survived. His flagship crippled and his fleet reduced to scrap metal. As his damaged ship limped away from Paradise, he sent a single message to Coalition headquarters. "Don't fight them," he whispered, his voice broken by what he had witnessed. "For the love of all that's holy, don't fight them. They're not like US, they're something else entirely." Across the galaxy, news of the three disasters spread faster than light. The 72-hour deadline arrived like the countdown to the end of the world. Supreme Commander Zax 471 stood in his command center, watching the largest military fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. 50,000 ships from 20 different species stretched across space in formations that could be seen from distant star systems. The Great Harvest would begin in exactly 1 hour. Every major alien military power had committed their finest vessels to this moment. They would attack 50 human worlds simultaneously and prove once and for all that numbers could defeat any technology. Zax 471 refused to believe the reports from his surviving commanders. 3 human colonies destroying 200 Coalition ships had to be some kind of trick. Maybe advanced holographic technology or hidden reinforcements. Humans were still the same weak prey species they had always been. "All fleet commanders, final weapons check," he announced across the communication network. "In 1 hour, we will begin the complete extinction of the human race. Today, we take our rightful place as masters of the galaxy." 10,000 light years away, Fleet Admiral Danny Cruz stood on the bridge of the U.S. Leviathan. The massive vessel was the size of a small moon, hidden for 30 years as a deep space research station. Now it revealed its true nature as humanity's ultimate weapon of war. Danny's fleet was much smaller than the enemy force. Only 847 ships faced the Coalition's 50,000. But each human vessel represented technology that the galaxy's greatest scientists couldn't even understand. Every captain in the fleet was a veteran of conflicts that most alien species had never imagined. "All ships, battle stations," Danny commanded quietly. "Today we show the galaxy what happens when you try to extinct humanity. Make it count." Captain Ron Davis commanded the UES destroyer, a ship disguised for decades as a simple cargo transport. His crew had been pretending to be merchant sailors while secretly training for this exact moment. They were ready to drop the act and show their true skills. "Weapons systems online," his tactical officer reported. "Dimensional phase cannons charged, reality anchor deployed. Temporal shields active." Ron nodded grimly. The human fleet carried weapons that worked on principles most alien races had never discovered. Guns that could fire through different dimensions. Shields that existed in multiple time streams at once. Bombs that could make enemy ships forget they had ever been built. Admiral Kate Sullivan coordinated the defense from her underground command center on Earth. Thousands of displays showed the positions of both fleets as they moved toward their collision point. The aliens had chosen their target well. A cluster of human colonies that appeared lightly defended. What they didn't know was that the entire area was one massive trap. "Enemy fleet entering engagement zone," her tactical officer announced. 50,000 vessels confirmed. Multiple species, heavy weapons, planet killer capability. Kate looked at the numbers on her screen. 50,000 against 800. In any normal battle, humanity would be completely overwhelmed. But this wasn't a normal battle. "Begin Operation Revelation Final Phase," she ordered. "Show them what we've been hiding." Space itself seemed to change around the Coalition fleet. What had appeared to be empty vacuum was suddenly filled with human installations. Massive defense platforms, uncloaked like deadly flowers blooming in the darkness. Orbital weapon systems that had been disguised as asteroids. Powered-up guns the size of skyscrapers. But the real surprise was the human fleet itself. The 847 ships began to change, revealing their true forms. Cargo vessels expanded into dreadnoughts. Research ships unfolded weapon systems that dwarfed anything in the galaxy. Simple passenger transports became carriers launching fighter craft that moved faster than most alien ships could even track. The battle began when the Coalition opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams that could crack moons, missiles that could destroy continents, weapons that had conquered 100 worlds before. Enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems lanced toward the human defenders. The human response was immediate and terrible. Captain Linda Ross commanded the U.S. Nemesis, the asteroid ship that had destroyed the Corvan fleet at Hope Station. This time, she faced 1,000 enemy vessels instead of 70. She smiled as her weapons officer reported ready. "Status, fire," she said simply. The Nemesis unleashed hell. Gravity weapons created artificial black holes that consumed entire enemy formations. Reality disruptors made Coalition ships simply stop existing in this universe. Temporal cannons aged enemy vessels millions of years in seconds, turning them into ancient dust. But the most terrifying weapon was something the aliens had never seen before. The Nemesis fired what looked like ordinary missiles, but when they struck enemy ships, the results were horrifying. The missiles didn't explode. Instead, they infected the target vessels with something that made them turn against their own allies. Zephyrian. Ships began attacking Corvan vessels. Brutarian dreadnoughts opened fire on their own flagships. Coalition commanders watched in terror as their carefully coordinated fleet dissolved into chaos. Ship turning against ship in a nightmare of friendly fire. Captain Steve Morrison commanded another section of the human fleet. His group faced the largest concentration of enemy ships, nearly 10,000 vessels led by Supreme Commander Zax 471 himself. Steve had been waiting 30 years for this moment. "All ships, implement Protocol 7, he commanded. Protocol 7 was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Instead of fighting the enemy fleet directly, the human ships simply vanished. Not cloaked or hidden, but gone completely from normal space-time. The Coalition ships found themselves firing at empty space, while human vessels attacked from dimensions that shouldn't exist. The human fleet could strike from anywhere, anytime. while remaining completely untouchable. It was like fighting ghosts that could kill. Supreme Commander Zax 471 watched, his massive fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that barely seemed to exist. His ship's weapons couldn't hit targets that weren't entirely in the same reality. His shields couldn't stop attacks that came from impossible directions. How is this possible? He screamed at his science officers. How can they do things that violate the laws of physics? The answer came from Captain Morrison himself, broadcasting on all frequencies as his ship materialized directly in front of Zax 471's flagship. Physics are different when you evolved on a world that's actively trying to kill you, Morrison explained calmly. We didn't just develop technology to explore space. We developed it to survive in a universe that treats existence as a privilege. You have to earn every day. The human ship fired a single shot. Not an energy beam or a missile, but something that looked like a small metal sphere. When it hit Zax 471's dreadnought, the massive vessel simply folded in on itself like origami, compacted into a ball no larger than a basketball. Zax-471 survived long enough to send one final message to any coalition forces that might be listening. Retreat, he whispered as his ship died around him. They're not like us. They're not like anyone. Run. The Great Harvest lasted exactly 18 minutes. 50,000 coalition ships were reduced to scrap metal and expanding gas clouds. The largest military force in galactic history was destroyed by less than 1,000 human vessels. And the humans didn't lose a single ship. Dr. Kevin Walsh, Earth's chief alien affairs specialist, broadcast the aftermath to every world in known space. The footage showed coalition debris fields stretching across light years, while human ships floated untouched among the wreckage. This is what we tried to avoid, Kevin explained to the shocked galaxy. Not because we feared you, but because we feared ourselves. We spent 40 years pretending to be something we're not, because we hoped you would learn to be better than us. The broadcast showed human soldiers boarding the few coalition ships that had survived. But instead of executing the crews, they were providing medical aid and safe passage home. Even after the most devastating military victory in recorded history, humans were still trying to be merciful. We are apex predators from a death world, Kevin continued. Every day of our existence is a struggle against forces that would destroy lesser species. We developed technology not for exploration, but for survival. We built weapons not for conquest, but for protection. We learned to fight not because we wanted to, but because everything in our universe taught us that peace is something you have to be strong enough to enforce. Ambassador Sarah Johnson addressed the Galactic Council for the first time as humanity's true representative. She stood before alien leaders who were still trembling from watching their greatest military forces destroyed in less than 20 minutes. We spent 40 years being the species you wanted us to be, Sarah said firmly. Weak, peaceful, easy to ignore or push around. We thought if we showed you mercy and kindness, you might learn those values yourselves. Instead, you saw our restraint as opportunity and our mercy as weakness. The council chamber was completely silent. Every alien diplomat now understood the truth. Humanity hadn't achieved peace by being too weak to fight. They had chosen peace while being strong enough to end the galaxy. We tried being the good guys. Sarah concluded, you wouldn't let us. Now you know what we were protecting you from, yourselves. And us. The vote was immediate and unanimous.